David Beck knew something was wrong. His blood sugar was crashing, he was becoming confused, and he was still behind the wheel of his truck. So he pulled over. His girlfriend called 911 and told him that he was going into diabetic shock. She thought that she was sending someone to help him. Moments later, Beck was on the pavement, injured and in handcuffs. Paramedics eventually tested his blood sugar, 46. And yet, Beck wasn't treated like a medical patient. He limped away with a citation for resisting arrest. And now Beck is suing. And when you see what the deputy allegedly knew before Beck hit the ground and what he allegedly said afterwards, this story gets a whole lot harder to explain. Hey, I'm America's attorney. I've been a lawyer for 25 years. I've helped over 12 million people in my class action practice. Let's jump in. If you're new here, I have a very simple editorial policy. I hate dirty cops. Good cops, fine. Dirty cops,
the worst. She is the worst.
They keep giving me content, which is considerate of them, but I'd really prefer that they stop. So hit subscribe if you too hate dirty cops, and together we can keep turning questionable police decisions into 10-minute videos with exhibits. Let's first back up because none of this started with a traffic stop or a report of a suspected crime. It started with a medical emergency. David Beck was 59 years old, self-employed, running a pool and spa care business, and also worked as a professional drummer. Same. On November 25th, 2024, he was driving home from work while talking on the phone with his girlfriend, Lakeisha Hawley, when she noticed something wasn't quite right. Beck kept repeating himself. He sounded weak and disoriented. Hawley knew that he had diabetes, and she recognized the signs that his blood sugar was dropping. Beck managed to pull his truck safely off the road, but by that point, he was so confused, he couldn't even tell Hawley exactly where he was. So Hawley called 911, told them Beck was going into diabetic shock, and then actually left her house to go looking for him herself. Eventually, a woman passing by stopped at Beck's truck, realized something was wrong, and Beck believes that she also called 911 and gave them Beck's location. A few minutes later, San Diego County Sheriff's Deputy Thompson pulled up behind Beck. And this next part is important. According to the lawsuit, Hawley was still on the phone through the truck's speaker system. Beck and Hawley both allegedly told Thompson right away he has diabetes, he's having a low blood sugar episode, and he needs medical help. So, according to Beck's version of events, this isn't about a deputy arriving at some mysterious scene and having to piece together what was wrong. He knew what was wrong. They told him. You would think the next step would be pretty straightforward. Give him a Snickers. No. Call the paramedics. Actually, I would love a Snickers. I wish this channel was sponsored by Snickers. In fact, I declare, as of right now, this channel is sponsored by Snickers. The Deputy Thompson instead ordered Beck out of the truck. Beck complied, but remember, he's weak, confused, and in the middle of a hypoglycemic event. Beck briefly gets out and then turns back towards his truck. According to the lawsuit, that's when Thompson grabs him, throws him to the ground, and forcefully handcuffs him. The takedown separated Beck's left shoulder and left him with abrasions on his face. Thompson then allegedly puts Beck, still handcuffed, into the back of his patrol car. Only after that do paramedics arrive. And when they examine Beck, the medical evidence starts making this situation look a whole lot less ambiguous. Counterpoint, it wasn't ambiguous to start with. According to the complaint, Beck's blood glucose was 46 milligrams per deciliter. So, to put that number into perspective, the American Diabetes Association considers blood sugar below 70 to be hypoglycemia. Below 54 is classified as level 2 hypoglycemia, a threshold serious enough that immediate action is needed. Symptoms of low blood sugar can include weakness, sweating, dizziness, confusion, coordination problems, and in more serious cases, seizures. Paramedics at the scene documented slurred speech, clammy skin, confusion about the date, and dried blood around his mouth and face. So the girlfriend who called 911 saying he's having a diabetic emergency appears to have been pretty much, spot on. Beck's girlfriend eventually arrives at the scene while Beck is still handcuffed and being treated by the paramedics. According to the complaint, Hawley is talking with another deputy when Thompson walks over and interrupts the conversation.
How rude.
And remember what Beck's lawsuit says Thompson already knew. Hawley had told him Beck was diabetic. Beck had told him his blood sugar was low, and Thompson had already seen the glucose monitor on Beck's arm. According to the lawsuit, Thompson then tells Hawley that he knew all that, but he had to rough him up a little bit. Sorry. There's no way he actually said that. That is so bad. And then allegedly, Thompson tells her he gave Beck a resisting arrest. Now, I have to say allegedly because the body cam footage is still not available for this arrest, but come on. It makes perfect sense that the same police who would beat up someone who's in a medical crisis would also resist FOIA and try to not turn over the body cam footage. But it will come out eventually. I'm telling you, it always does. Why did I get so upset? We're gonna see that body cam footage. Meanwhile, Beck is starting to recover after paramedics give him glucose, but he's still handcuffed. He complains that the cuffs are hurting him and asks another deputy to remove them. The alleged response was, "We'll take them off when we're ready." Now, eventually, Thompson gives Beck the resisting arrest citation and the cuffs finally come off. So Beck's girlfriend called 911 because she thought he needed medical help. He got the glucose eventually, but he also got a separated shoulder and a criminal citation. So, Merry Christmas. And the story that Thompson allegedly tells his supervisor afterward adds another problem entirely. About an hour after Beck gets home, he and Holly call the sheriff's office to request another beating, perhaps? No. Beck wants to speak to Thompson's supervisor because, understandably, he has some questions about how a call for medical help ended up with him being slammed to the ground. A few hours later, Sergeant Stillfield calls him back. Beck tells him he believes Thompson used excessive force. You think? And according to the complaint, Stillfield tells Beck that Thompson reported a very different version of events. Stay with me here. He says that Beck tried to take a swing at him and also he tried to drive away. I mean, is he like punching him while trying to drive off? I don't know. So Holly asks him what seems to be the obvious question. Did you watch the body cam footage? And according to the lawsuit, Stillfield says no. He was going off of what Thompson had told him. Holly asks him to watch it, and Stillfield allegedly responds that he has other matters to attend to, and then would take a lot of steps to review the footage. Hey, you know what else takes a lot of steps, Sergeant Stillfield, if you're watching? Defending a federal lawsuit. That's called foreshadowing. Then Beck asks if he can get a copy of the body cam footage. The alleged response, you're gonna have to subpoena it. Well, eventually, Beck did something even better. He filed a federal lawsuit. Wow, I really paid off that foreshadowing pretty fast. And as for that resisting arrest citation, well, the San Diego County District Attorney's Office declined to prosecute it. I mean, it sounds like the DA probably watched the body cam, and the body cam probably does not track with what Thompson said happened. And oh, wow, I'm so surprised. Fast forward to December of 2025, Beck files that federal lawsuit against San Diego County Deputy Thompson, Sergeant Stillfield, and a number of unnamed defendants. And this isn't a small complaint. Beck brings 11 different causes of action, including excessive force, unlawful detention and arrest, violations of the Americans with Disabilities Act, assault, battery, false imprisonment, negligence, and violations of California's Bain Act. Beck says the injuries from the arrest continue to cause him significant pain even a year later and have interfered with both his pool and spa business and his work as a professional drummer. And if this story is giving you some level of deja vu, there's a reason. We covered another lawsuit on this channel involving police mistaking a diabetic emergency for criminal behavior. Because apparently, is this person drunk or are they having a potentially life-threatening medical emergency is a distinction that police officers are still grappling with. Beck's lawsuit also tried to hold the county itself responsible under Monell, arguing that the sheriff's department failed to adequately prepare its patrol deputies to deal with diabetic emergencies. Beck pointed out that the sheriff's department allegedly had guidance for jail personnel about recognizing diabetic emergencies, but not comparable guidance for patrol deputies. And California's own post-training materials specifically warn officers that low blood sugar can produce symptoms that resemble alcohol intoxication or drug use. The county had a pretty clever response to Beck's training argument. They basically said, your own lawsuit says Thompson already knew. Beck told him. Holly told him. He allegedly saw the glucose monitor. So if Thompson already recognized the diabetic emergency, how would additional training teaching him to recognize diabetic emergencies have prevented this? And that argument, while circular and somewhat crazy, ends up being important because the judge largely agrees with it. Now, the county tried to knock out several parts of Beck's lawsuit. I mean, just like Thompson tried to knock out Beck. And 4 days ago, the federal judge issued his ruling. Beck won some important points, but he unfortunately didn't win everything. First, the bad news for Beck. The judge dismissed his Monell claim against the county, his intentional infliction of emotional distress claim, and the claims against the unnamed Doe defendants. But those dismissals were with leave to amend, meaning that Beck gets another shot at pleading them. The reasoning behind the ruling on the Monell claim is, as I mentioned, because of the county's somewhat circular argument. The judge agreed that additional training on recognizing a diabetic emergency wouldn't have necessarily prevented what happened. So the judge thinks Thompson's just an idiot? Well, we'll find out. The county also makes one argument that I think is pretty fair. They say Thompson couldn't simply let a confused and disoriented Beck get back into a truck and potentially drive away. And I do agree with that, but that's not really the end of the question. There's a pretty big gap between taking someone's keys and allegedly throwing him to the ground and forcibly handcuffing him. And the judge seems to recognize that distinction. The judge characterizes the alleged problem much more directly. Beck's injury resulted from Thompson's unreasonable decision to throw him to the ground and forcefully handcuff him despite knowing he was experiencing a diabetic emergency. Oh, I just came up with a solution. Why not just throw the keys to the ground, not the man? Genius. But also, Beck scored a big win on his disability claims. The county's argument was essentially Beck never adequately explained what reasonable accommodation Thompson should have provided, and stopping a confused person from potentially getting back behind the wheel isn't discrimination just because that confusion happens to be caused by diabetes. The judge was not persuaded. He refused to dismiss Beck's ADA and Rehabilitation Act claims, finding that Beck sufficiently alleged Thompson knew about his disability and failed to reasonably accommodate him during the encounter, by not throwing him to the ground. Now, the county's motion didn't even ask the judge to dismiss Beck's core excessive force and unlawful arrest claims against Thompson. That's sweet. Those claims remain. So this lawsuit is nowhere close to over, and now we get to the part that could make this case quite interesting. What does the actual evidence, aka the body cam footage, show? Beck now has until August 24th to amend the claims that the judge dismissed. But the biggest questions here have barely been touched. Beck says he was confused and disoriented and needed medical help. Thompson told his supervisor that Beck tried to swing at him and drive away. Well, those are two very different stories. This case is still at the pleading stage, so now we get to the evidence. Eventually, we gotta see the body cam. We need to hear the 911 calls, we gotta see these medical records, and we wanna hear from the witnesses who were actually there. Hey, what do you think happened that day? Do you believe Beck may have acted out in his disoriented state? Or did Deputy Thompson have a power trip and escalate an emergency? Do me a favor, drop your pro se opinion down below in the comments and let me know what you think. And don't forget, while you're down there, to lawyer up with me, America's Attorney, by gently and lovingly hitting that subscribe button. I'll be back very soon with more legal breakdowns. See ya. Life-threatening and medical emergency. Medical emergency. Paramedics gave him glucose. And according to the lawsuit, glucose. I can't.